that goes into building an environment not only where nature is restoring, but people want to kind of return to.
BusinessJournalDaily.com. 3 Minutes With is brought to you by Farmers National Bank.
Save, borrow, and invest with Farmers. Take heart knowing you're helping create a strong community. Mind your money at Farmers. Talk directly to local decision makers about your loans, investments, and insurance. Farmers. Fiercely local, fiercely loyal.
We asked you here because we want to talk about riverfront development, the Mahoning River, and we understand how important it is to overall economic development.
There was this Watershed Restoration Act funding coming through the state, that if one community did a water cleanup project, instead of paying interest on the loans to the city or to the state, those monies could go toward a cleanup project, and that is how the dams are cleaned up. And no one understands how the money flows, so don't worry. But the dams held 80% of the contaminants. And so everyone said, well, why not clean up the sediments behind the dams, get 80% of it done, and let the rest of it flow and nature take its course. And that has been the rest of history, you might say, on the cleanup of the river. But we continue to have the mayors meet and identify and advocate for those kinds of causes that each city shares, both economic development, recreational, and community development oriented. And it was the Mahoning River Consortium that really began to develop all these little different initiatives to create more community support and awareness around the river.
It depends on what your definition of clean is. I guess is it's never going to be like a high mountain glacial stream. That's just a reality of having industry, being a post-industrial city like Youngstown. I think the water is every year getting better. The years of organic material has kind of created a cap on the bank. So as long as you don't pierce that cap, it would be considered relatively clean.
Levisburg Dam that you brought up, if that one was obviously slated to come out this summer, that obviously there's things that are contentious about that particular one. I think it's mainly associated with residential properties being so close to the river and the back of their properties aligning that river. So I understand that people would have concerns to the change of what that would mean, given that the water level will decrease. As a result, that's just what happens when you remove a low-head dam, because the purpose of a low-head dam is to keep water levels high. And that was their purpose back in the day for cooling and different things for the industrial buildings that were there.
Our public works director and myself sat down with the map in his office one day, because I'm like, how can we really connect downtown to the river and to B&O, where I can walk from City Hall and it's like I can go kayaking right here and not have to go down the hill around the mulberry bush. And we were stuck because we're like, the rails are in the way. So I think we have to become creative. And I think that we have to become, like Katie stated, we've walked Spring Commons. We're working on that project now. And it's the best way, So now we're just figuring out, and we're going to have a meeting soon about how do we just continue the Spring Commons from in Mahoning Commons area, then connect us to Mill Creek Park from there. So basically going from downtown to Spring Commons to Mill Creek Park, because the rails are, unfortunately, we have one on each side of our river, and so it makes it very hard for us to develop traditionally like we would want to.
We have a couple companies, local companies, that have kayak. They have trips. We have Bare Feet Kayak, who is out every day in the spring and summer and fall. We have a lot of fishermen that are right on the bank, right by the kayak launch that we have there now. It's utilized pretty often. If you drive down by our launch on a Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, there are cars parked all over the place. There are people really utilizing our river. So we already see it constantly. And that's what somebody spoke to earlier. We want these people parking, getting out of their car, whether they start at the B&O or they start in Struthers, get out in Lowville. We want that. Those people visiting our businesses and visiting our restaurants and driving through our downtown and having a reason to stop.
As we're improving the water quality conditions, we're improving the habitat conditions, we'll see better indicator species start to develop, and then that food chain just builds from there. And I think that goes into building an environment not only where nature is restoring, but people want to kind of return to. And finding these places where people can find refuge and, recreation and relaxation, and just it's a different environment, especially in our urban core. I think that's really critical, where kind of parks are at a premium, right? That's where they're most valuable in our communities, in finding natural space. So it's important to make the effort to bring these spaces back into their highest and best use there.
BusinessJournalDaily.com 3 Minutes With is brought to you by Farmers National Bank.
Save, borrow, and invest with Farmers. Take heart knowing you're helping create a strong community. Mind your money at Farmers. Talk directly to local decision makers about your loans, investments, and insurance. Farmers. Fiercely local, fiercely loyal.